we have solved the problems with the technology as much as we're going to. Which is to say, we're going to hold the phone up to the microphone.
Bravo.
You saw Caitlin earlier. Caitlin was our first stArt manager when we opened stArt in 2009. And we invited all of the previous managers back for this experience, this conversation. Obviously, it's hard for everyone to get back here for this sort of thing. Caitlin had hoped to join us, but I think as some testament to the success of our stArt manager graduates, she is too busy doing her work as an art advisor to have come down and join us. So we were trying to patch her in. Didn't work quite like we had hoped, but hopefully we can have a conversation with her. I'm going to throw out a question just to everyone to get the conversation rolling. And this is a very unstructured thing. We're just going to converse our way through the history of stArt for the last 10 years. When you began working at stArt, all of you, what was your first memorable day at stArt? Keely can start out.
Did you catch that, Caitlin?
My most memorable at stArt. Wow. Oh my gosh, that's such a great question. I think every day was memorable, for lack of a better example, simply because we were really just building things from the ground up. And, it sort of felt like we were reinventing the wheel at every turn. So we really had to get very creative, put structures in place and systems in place to make it a sustainable venture going forward. And I can't tell you how proud I am that the stArt has, grown and thrived over the past 10 years. I mean, it was an enormous learning curve for me, and I'm sure this hotel as well, and each other subsequent manager has really been able to expand upon it and turn it into something even better than it was the year prior. So, for my year, every day was a new adventure.
As it was for me. And certainly with Caitlin and I, we were kind of inventing things as we went because there was no model for what we were doing. We had looked around at other places to see if they had other galleries on campuses like ours, and there really wasn't. There were student galleries, there were places, on campuses where students would show work, but there was no sort of holistic approach to showing work, curating, selling work, having class exhibitions, solo exhibitions, doing the whole sort of gallery gamut. And we still haven't found anything that really replicates that. So it seems to be really unique. But Marcus, what?
Oh man. Should I use the mic?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Hey guys, so my name is Marcus Keely, and I was the second stArt Gallery manager after Caitlin, and was there from 2010 until 2012. So thank you all for coming out tonight. Yeah, it's a good question, and I was trying to sort of rack my brain for a specific day. One that comes to mind, and this might come up in some other, as an answer for some other question, but Leanne had an exhibition called Corner of the Room, which was with a drawing class of hers, and I particularly remember the installation of this exhibition fondly. I think probably all of us have our story about the exhibition that was the most challenging to install. But it was a really I remember it distinctly because I think I was there in the evening and I was on this ladder trying to tape up, because we were really, at the time when I was at stArt, we were really trying to avoid marking into the walls or making holes or any punctures. Unfortunately, that time has gone away because it was pretty limiting. But anyway, I was sort of trying to take these, hanging on fishing line, I think it was, these drawings of different corners of the stArt Gallery, so that when you were walking around the space, you would sort of be seeing the corners that were drawn sort of in the same vantage point where they were drawn
What a
from.
brilliant idea.
A great idea.
Jeez.
Not so great of an install. I think halfway through it, there was a successive and they just started falling down around the gallery. And at this point, I think I had Paul on speed dial and called him in, and he graciously came. And we acquired I think an awl from somewhere. I don't know if you had one, but
Alls are good. Kayla's learning about all.
We need to buy all the alls.
and then we ended up like, what the heck, we're gonna just make holes in the ceiling and get those up that way. So anyway, long story short, that was a pretty memorable evening. Day turned into night, but it was very, at the end of the day, it made for an awesome exhibition. It was a good idea.
Hi everybody, my name is Katie Wolf and I was the 4th stArt Gallery manager. Caitlin, Marcus, Adelaide, and then myself, and I was the manager from 2013 to 2014. And a particular day is hard to pick. But
There's so many.
I know, but my mind is going, unfortunately, to the day that I made my very first professional mistake.
Uh-oh.
So this was a sculpture show, David Finn's class, and the student brought in this very rickety, those soapstones, and it was very tilty, didn't have a good strong base, and I said, please come back and make a shim or something to hold this up, and she said, yeah, and left. And some days went by, and I was working on the computer, and I looked over and just watched it slowly fall and shatter into a million pieces. And I thought, oh my God, I'm fired. I'm fired and I'm dead. So that's it for me. So the first thing you do when you're in panic mode is you call Paul, as always. And he just immediately said, oh, well, just call the student, do this, call the professor, we'll do this, that, and everything, it'll be fine. Are you okay? I'm the one that made the mistake, And then I called David Finn, and I said, a student's piece has shattered into a million pieces, and he immediately said, oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And at that point, I realized that it was okay to make mistakes and things happen. And I think as a student, you go into every test thinking it's such a big thing and you have to be perfect. And it was sort of a way that I realized that nobody is perfect and things happen. And I could take risks and not be scared.
Well, and a student sold a piece, they wouldn't know what I sold.
We paid them for the piece, so she was happy. She was all right. That's true.
Hi everyone, my name is Brittany Forniotis. I was the 6th stArt manager, so after Katie it was Becca Gleichenhaus, who could not be with us tonight, and then me from 2015 to 2016. I have a lot of memorable first days at stArt, but I'll choose to tell a happy story. So I had wanted to be the stArt manager from the second I met Marcus, Keely, in 2011.
It's his fault.
It is his fault. Leanne brought my first year seminar there, and I met him, and I saw the space, and I was like, I must do this. So I worked at Haynes, and then I interned at stArt my last semester with Forrest, with Becca. And when I came for my first day, Becca was so excited to see me, and she had such a great time showing me, how to get into the computer and where the coffee is, just, this kind of little things that make the gallery your home over the year. And then after the end of that day, we went to Trader Joe's, and we bought a frozen cheesecake, and we brought it back to stArt, and we stood in the back and ate the entire cheesecake to celebrate me starting this new job and fellowship, and it was really wonderful. I felt like in that moment, it's like, yes, I do belong here, and this is going to be a really good year.
Well, stArt's all about binge eating, I think.
Yes, obviously. Obviously, yeah.
All Hi, my name is Kayla Amador, the most recent stArt Gallery Manager. After Brittany was Kylie Kinder, who could not be here, and Jay Buchanan, who also could not be here. And so I honestly lost track of what the question was after listening all those great stories, but it was something along the lines of the first great memory at stArt. And so I've only been here for about 1.5 months, maybe 2. I've kind of lost track of that as well. I'm not in the headspace for numbers right now, so God, I mean, this whole experience of getting this whole event together, thank you for those who could be here, first of all. I appreciate it, and I hope you can join us for our reception at 6:30. I know some people have said they will join us for the reception later as well, because there's a bunch of different things happening, so it should be a nice little party over there. And I'm trying to think, because I mean, it's been a whirlwind getting this exhibition together. It's kind of been my first project, and so I know the big deal was the whole shuttle situation, but there are also things with getting people's work on time and text on time and things like that. But I'm gonna be sentimental for a minute and try not to cry. I remember my first day in. I think it was my first official day in after Jay had finished training me, and I noticed that there was some stuff on the desk. And my first thought, I freaked out because I'm thinking, who broke into the gallery? And then I was like, who's gonna break in and leave stuff here? So it must not be. And I remember that Katie and Paul both have access to the gallery, so I'm thinking, okay, it must be something like a note they left for me or whatever. And I noticed that Katie had left me a note saying welcome and some flowers, and it just made me so happy. So.
And just to set you up for the next month, which is like a day or a month or a year,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
She's just trying to smooth it over, so you know.
Yeah, nice flowers. Don't talk about the working weekends and installing things, and walls needing to be repainted, all that stuff.
No.
But
we start out easy.
all smooth sailing. Baptism by fire, nothing like that. Yeah. So.
No, I do have to say that
It's been great.
probably more than most managers, Kayla's had to like jump in the deep end of the pool because homecoming is early this year, and we were ambitious about homecoming this year. So
good job, Kayla.
It's been a lot. Yeah. She's doing really well there. So that's your first memorable day. I'm just going to let you guys ramble now a little bit about other aspects of stArt, either professionally, subsequent, looking back at stArt after you've been away for a little while, for those of you who have, what's it meant to you professionally or even personally, like going off to Mongolia. Did you think about stArt when you were in Mongolia? So let's go back around to Caitlin and see if she has any like lingering effects of stArt, we'll call it.
Mm-hmm. Did you catch that? Sorry.
No.
So Caitlin, we're now asking everyone about what I'm calling lingering effects of stArt. So in subsequent years, what comes back to you about your stArt experience, good, bad, indifferent?
Well, first of all, I feel terribly awful not being able to see everybody in the room and introduce myself properly and hello to all the subsequent stArt managers. I'm sad not to see you, but I will say I think about my experience in stArt every day. It has hugely informed my career in a way that I hoped for, but really never could have imagined would it become a reality. I mean, I went on some trip to move to New York, back to New York, I should say, and worked for galleries there for many years, and galleries in Washington, D.C. for many years, and everything I learned at the gallery from working with contemporary artists and navigating artist personalities to managing inventory to learning diplomacy skills, which translate to any profession, but maybe more so to art than anything. Installing expositions, being a detailed person, doing what you say you're going to do. It's many of the things that one learns in a first job, I think. But I gotta say, I think that stArt's success is really a testament to Paul. Paul really has allowed each manager to imbue the gallery and its personality with their own personality and make it, make their stamp on it. And And that has been such a gift. Really, I think the other managers should agree with me. But to answer your question, yes, it's been a huge part of my career for sure.
That's good to hear. The check's in the mail.
Yes, a little close for Paul, but it's the truth.
Marcus.
Yeah. So I always, Caitlin, I don't know if you can hear me, but your answers are always so impressive thus far, and you're very well spoken. And so it's an honor to go after you, but also intimidating.
I wish I was there to see you in person. It was a pleasure handing the gallery off to you, and I was very confident it was in good hands.
And I think the running joke was that there were going to be a pair of high heels waiting for me on my first day as the big shoes to fill. But I don't think there were any.
Well, we found some eventually, but they were the wrong size or something.
Yeah. Anyway, likewise, Caitlin. It was an honor to follow you at stArt. So I was looking forward to seeing you. I haven't seen her, I think, since Caitlin. I don't think I've seen you since you left, unfortunately. But we'll have to do this again in 10 years from now.
Got the wheel in the end.
Yeah, start at 20. God forbid whoever gets that job, but bless you.
Kayla's a little scarred.
But I'll be brief. I mean, I guess you brought up Mongolia. That was the place I went to. I went into the Peace Corps after I left Wake, but I went directly from stArt into Haynes Gallery and worked for about a year and a half as an assistant director there, and then went into the Peace Corps, went to Mongolia, and then sort of now I'm in commercial design work, that sort of thing. But like Caitlin said, the sort of idea of thinking about stArt every day, I mean, it is at some level, it's always there. I mean, people asking me sort of what I did in Winston-Salem or sort of your work life, it comes up a lot. You know, I mention it a lot, and I always think it's so cool that I get to say that I managed a student art gallery. Like, that, to me, is a really awesome experience, and something that not many people get to do, and especially the first year out of college. But yeah, the opportunity to make something your own, like Caitlin alluded to, Paul giving us this sort of freedom, this opportunity to go in here and really put our own spin on it, was amazing, and something that is difficult to find in a lot of other places. And I have yet to really have a comparable experience to that. And it's sort of a blessing and a curse in the sense that it's like, this is your ship that you're sort of steering, and hopefully you don't run into ground. But on the other hand, it's just this awesome opportunity to be able to try out new things and have these cool new projects. Like I think the stArt House film series, Kayla and I talked about this last month. And like that was a really fun thing that I got to do and just come up with. And Paul was like, okay, go for it. Like, have fun with it. So just the opportunity to have this creative experience and to be able to really just kind of pour myself, my own interest into that was something that I carry with me.
Oh, it's a hard, so I, after my stArt gallery year, I also moved into the assistant director position at the Haynes Gallery. I fully kicked Marcus out, out of the nest, off to Mongolia he went. And that has been my job since. And I feel tremendously lucky because I have seen every single manager. So Caitlin was the stArt Gallery manager my freshman year. And I distinctly remember her and going to those events and seeing those shows. And then was involved throughout my college experience with Marcus and with Adelaide, and knew that that was the position that I wanted to have. But since then, I've seen all of the other managers since, and it's been a real joy, and I've learned so much from each of the managers since. And I think, as Paul said, each person has put their own stamp on it, and it's just been a joy to see everybody learn and grow and enjoy it.
So I learned a lot of technical skills from Paul. Some I still use to this day, and some I hope I never use again. Measuring lumens, not my favorite. Not my favorite math. Lumens.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't like it. But really for me, stArt was a period of growth. So before I was at stArt, I hated going to department events. I hated mingling and talking to strangers, and just I wouldn't say I had no self-confidence, but I didn't have self-confidence in the public sphere. And Paul and stArt combined kicked me out of that, and now I am honestly very fortunate that happened. I mean, at the time it was painful, but as any kind of growth is, but now it just served me so well. So I'm in a PhD program, and I just finished a master's degree, and being able to carry myself with confidence in those spaces has really been such a wonderful boon, and I can't thank Paul or stArt enough for that. So.
What was that line you said earlier about dinner parties?
Oh yes, Kayla asked us for a little write-up about our time at stArt, and of course I had to include that I sort of sharpened my wit at Paul's dinner table, which was really a favorite thing of mine. So after a long install or kind of a rough week at stArt, Paul and Leanne would invite me over for dinner because we all live downtown, and I learned so much about talking to colleagues and mentors and how to be sociable in that setting. So it was really great. I guess I'm not passing that way.
Let's see.
Remember, it's early for you.
Yeah. Well, I do agree with the whole social thing, though. I think definitely having a job this incredible, this unique, really gives you something interesting to talk about, whatever the situation is that you're in. So whether it's professional, just social, casual, you can say, hey, yeah, I'm the manager of this gallery, I do X, Y, and Z, and get to learn all the ins and outs, work with some really great people. And so you have something to talk about, so it's really nice. And besides that, so I also worked in the Haynes Gallery as a work study student from my first year through my senior year. Yeah, I think we all. Okay. So Haynes alumni funneled into stArt and then into the world. But yeah, so I learned a lot from working at Haynes as well about galleries and kind of the ins and outs and that kind of thing. But then kind of being able to continue working in stArt, really getting to have an in-depth kind of experience with the gallery. And I learned bits and pieces of how to hang a show from hanging my honor show, but in installing this exhibition, I realized I had no idea how to make tabs on the back of a work of paper, so now I know how to do that. So different things like that, the little things, just learning how all the different ins and outs of how a gallery works, and some things you never thought you'd need to know. I didn't know how to open a wine bottle so recently either, so. But,
How did you go through school without doing that?
I meant it.
Yep. I'm gonna jump in with a little plug for Jay Buchanan. Jay was the stArt manager prior to Kayla, just left recently in graduate studies now. But Jay was the first stArt manager officially outside of the fellows system. So prior to Jay, we've been part of the fellows program, and that meant restricting most of the managers to 1 year. It wasn't exceptional, we'll come back to that. So the fellow system changed, and changed enough that we didn't feel like stArt could hire on the basis that the fellows were being hired on different timelines and that sort of thing. So we elected to move away from that 1 year kind of rubric into a 2 year one, and Jay was the first 2 year manager. And Jay, probably among all the stArt people, came with the most broad social and sort of professional connections on campus. He had been in theater, and he was very gregarious, very extroverted. And it's interesting, each of the stArt managers has come with their own personalities and proclivities, and I never saw stArt as like a really tight box. It's like there are certain things that we have to do in stArt. There are shows you have to get up, and there's a certain pattern to some of these things. But there's also a lot of room for experimentation, potential failure, which is fine, and he brought in a kind of a different energy that wasn't, I would say, in addition to fine art, there was this theatrical element that he brought in. He was probably the most cross-disciplinary of our managers, and partly because he had the time to develop it from day one. He knew that it could be a 2-year position. He started thinking about it early on that way. It's a very different scheme of development. I think you have another year to see your projects through. So I just wanted to say that about Jay. It's just remarkable for me to watch each one inhabit the position, and they run up against their own limits. They get very ambitious usually early on, and it's like I try and tell them you can add a project to the ones we've already got, but you probably should take one away because as an added process it will kill you. And like Marcus started the stArt House film series, and after Marcus it kind of languished, but now Kayla is thinking about picking it up again. So some of these things kind of regenerate over time too, which is really nice. But it is a position that allows you, within confines, to grow in your own ways, to push it in your own ways, which I think may have some value for the managers going forward. Yeah. Let's go back to Caitlin. Caitlin, what else would you add about your experience there?
I'm so sorry, I didn't understand the
Okay.
so I don't know repeating myself.
Sure. So what I asked after my ramble was what other aspects of your stArt experience would you like to talk about?
Well, I suppose it might be important, everyone, I think that everyone speaks to the fact that they have been an assistant at Haynes before they finished on their way to stArt. And, I came to stArt in a much more circuitous way. I was actually a communications major and a double minor studio in history, which was really weird for the time. And so I took the management and the visual arts class, and half history students and half business students. And every time I met somebody in the department, they thought I was a business student. I was like, no, I'm not art history or business and communications, but here I am. I think I always had a passion for business and sales, and all of my sort of odd jobs growing up have been sales focused. But I also have this passion for art and understood the process of making it simply by taking courses, all through my schooling, and particularly when I got to Wage. And so those things sort of rolled together in this double helix, when I got to stArt. And so I was interested in all kinds of things that stArt allowed me to pull together into this amazing, option for a career. And I think a lot of folks who maybe come through either the art history department or otherwise, it's like you're not thinking about a career in the commercial art market as something that's viable, and it certainly is difficult to break into and can be difficult to sustain, but it's so rewarding. At the end of the day, I think that we're all interested in this because, art is what makes us human. It's sort of what makes the world go round. And so it's really, I don't know that I would still be where I am without this opportunity from the university and from the art department, and especially now that I've started my own business and I'm working for myself, I'm having all these flashbacks to us setting up everything for stArt. It's not easy.
Sorry about that. PTSD.
In life, whether it's in the art market or otherwise, stArt has laid the building blocks for
Caitlin, you still there?
I'm here.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to pass on to Marcus again.
So I'll be brief again with this, but for me, I think the end of the day, the most important thing about, well, most things in life, but about stArt in that regard is the connections with the people, and really the people that made up the experience. And you know, we talk about Paul a lot because he was a very significant part of that. We talk about one another as this lineage of managers, and we all share that. We talk about faculty members who throw us exhibitions that are difficult to install, or some of us talk about that. When I was reflecting back on being in the stArt Gallery, it sometimes could be this sort of isolating experience. You know, it's in Ronaldo Village, you're sort of out there, you're in this white box. And some days were really kind of slow. I mean, some days not many people would walk through the door, but whenever someone would walk through the door, you just meet some of the most interesting people from who knows where. Sometimes they were just passing through and thought this was a coffee shop. Sometimes they were there specifically to see the work of their grandchild that was on the wall. And you have some of the most interesting conversations with people. And that's what I remember the most, I think, are those different conversations that I would have with certain people who would come in. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there and say that stArt, while it is a physical space, is so much more than that and has been embodied by, continues to be embodied by all the people who have come into contact with it, both from internal and external. So yeah.
What Caitlin and Marcus have said is pretty perfect. I think the only thing I can add is really it was just a perfect place to have a first job. And I'm really grateful for all that I have learned and continue to learn from stArt.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely want to echo that, and I'd like to add in my work study students and my interns, actually. So stArt taught me kind of how to be a boss, and it was really terrifying, but really gratifying also. And I still have pinned at my desk a note from one of my first work study students on her first day. She left me a note saying, like, thank you, you made this such a great place to start working. It was just really, really special because I didn't imagine myself having that kind of impact on someone. I was so freaked out by having this, you know, gallery, this baby of Paul's that I might break at any moment.
Obviously, you can break things there, it's fine.
Yeah, clearly. That I really wasn't considering the repercussions of my being in the space on other people. And so that was really rewarding for me. But also, I talk to Becca every single day on June Chat. So the stArt network, I think, is very, very strong and very powerful.
And again, with little experience to speak of yet, but definitely ditto to all of that so far. And I think, again, in putting this exhibition together, so we have our new space, stArt Downtown, which I believe started during Jay's time here. And my brilliant idea, right, was to have this exhibition span both spaces in Ronaldo Village and stArt Downtown. Logistical nightmare, kind of, but I think it's turned out well so far. And I think the thing about that was we want people to understand that the stArt Downtown space exists, you know, and that it is connected to the space of Ronaldo Village. And I think the big goal in all of this is to kind of, one, for those of us who have known what stArt is and want to continue to appreciate it, we can continue to kind of see it downtown, see it in Ronaldo Village, that kind of thing. But I also think it's great for our impact on, you know, the larger Lake community, because students who attend classes downtown see the art, see it as the stArt name, and say, well, what is this all about? And then they find the gallery of Ronaldo Village and that kind of thing. And so, and the great thing about our stArt Downtown expansion is that the work features, the work that we show here is always something connected to the community or to science, medicine, that kind of thing. And it really highlights, as Jay was mentioning, Paul was mentioning, Jay's kind of connection to and dedication to interdisciplinary work with stArt, because it is a student art gallery, and art is the primary focus of the gallery. But it's also so important, as Caitlin also mentioned, that art kind of is our lives. You know, art kind of reflects humanity, and so to think about all the different ways that we interact with art is has been a great addition to what stArt is all about.
And that sort of leads into the nature of the current exhibition, or exhibitions, depending how you look at it. And the idea for the way we did the stArt at 10 sort of anniversary exhibition was I contacted the previous managers and we banged some ideas around and sort of came to a consensus after exploring some other ideas that they would choose artists that they recall from their time as stArt managers, that somehow the work was memorable to them, and maybe the artists as well. And so we formed a list, kind of a long list of artists from each of those epochs, and chased down the work that we had from those artists in the collection, which was considerable actually. A lot of the artists they had chosen were already part of the student art collection on campus, and had been purchased either through honor shows or through student art exhibitions. So we had a body of work from like a snapshot of the time they were managers and artists together. And in many cases, we were able to go back then and reach out to these artists currently and see what work they were creating and pull in more recent work to pair with that. It's been a really interesting process to see where people are. It was frustrating at times because essentially you're working with like 20 artists and 10 managers or something, and trying to get everyone on board at the same time is hard with one artist. So we had challenges with that, but it has made for, I think, a surprisingly robust show in both places, and to see within each artist's example of work, in this case, the growth, or maybe just a snapshot from the time, has been very interesting. And I don't know if the managers have had time to really look at it yet, but it's an interesting show for that reason. And then the process has been interesting as well. I also want to bring up, maybe in the whole stArt experience you've had, maybe think about the sort of arc of time that you were there, and what struck you initially and what you left with in terms of ideas and growth and so forth. How did those diverge, or did you end up where you thought you would after leaving there, from day one to the last day you were there? And the challenges in between, like, were there things that you thought were going to be really great and just kind of sucked, or things that surprised you by being better than expected?
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
Before we hop to Keely?
Sure.
Are you talking, and maybe you mean both, like the sort of progression and growth of the gallery, or of our sort of individual experiences?
You can speak to either one. Yeah. So Caitlin, did you get any of that? So the question, it's a little bit of a rambling question on my part. Looking at the arc of your time at stArt, from the first day to the last day, did you end up where you thought you would end up? Did you have a clear conception of that? What really challenged you? What surprised you? Were there things that you kind of engaged in that you thought were going to be great that didn't work out so well, and vice versa?
Well, it's a very interesting question. In terms of a career path, I've always been pretty straight ahead. I have thoughts about graduate school here and there, but for one reason or another, it was just not meant to be for me. However, I think, I suppose in terms of a larger organization, Wake Forest is the biggest company I've ever worked for. Most other offices I've been in haven't been more than 4 people, and so the matters of diplomacy and bureaucracy are quite a bit different in a larger institution. And so I think I learned from day one to the last day a lot about navigating those intricacies in a way that I could have never expected. And it really helped me navigate those things on a smaller scale as I moved into different office environments and jobs and roles and that kind of thing. It's two different animals, and I think I heard some people, pipe up about the social interaction part of it, and that was certainly something that I always loved and grew to love more, interacting with people who are interested in art and artists who are making it. I certainly grew in that way, and, realized sometimes you have to take care of yourself after an opening and just go sit in a dark room in silence, and things like have to happen every now and then. So I think that there was a big growth arc for me, for sure.
Well, and here's the other thing, Caitlin, is that when you started, there was just absolutely no model for this. We were making it up entirely. So you probably had more time in those dark rooms than maybe some of them.
Probably. Very true. Well, I don't want to derail the question, but I feel like if I don't ask it, I might not get to. Paul, this is really for you, and maybe for the other managers as well. What do you see as the biggest challenges being going into the future, and what do you hope the stArt sort of evolves into going forward?
Yeah, that's actually pretty interesting. Because stArt evolves each time there's a new manager, I haven't had to worry about the sort of strategic plan of evolution over a decade, because I knew two things. It evolves each year. You have a stArt manager, or 2 years as it may be, but because those spans are pretty brief, that you can adapt to institutional change pretty easily too. So it's not like, one person's going to occupy that position for 5 or 10 years, and you have to make sure that they're sort of growing with it. So it has kept it probably more flexible in that way, regardless of changes within administration or focuses or any of that stuff. In the basic structure of it, the way it functions for artists and for professors and so forth, really hasn't changed. We've nibbled around the edges of it. Like when you started, we were doing, I think, class exhibitions almost exclusively. We had maybe 1 or 2 solo shows from artists. We hadn't developed all the programming like stArt Yourself or 5 and Under and those things for alums. And we were flipping those shows every 2 weeks, which was just insane. No wonder you spent time in dark rooms. Yeah, I think it was probably with Marcus that the second year of Marcus, we started doing.
Well, we went to 3.
3 weeks, yeah. And we've kept 3 or 4 weeks as our windows now, and that made things a little more manageable. It also made them, more capable of taking on ambitious projects that student artists might bring to us, primarily like, solo shows that involve installations that you can't do in a few days, that sort of thing. So it's flexed and grown with the sort of demands placed on it by students and by faculty. And now with stArt Downtown, there's a different kind of flexibility involved. This is the first show that we've done in both places simultaneously, and I'm not sure I'd recommend that frequently, given our staffing and energy, but it does provide a possibility going forward if there's the kind of ambitious exhibition that would span both. So, it's a structure that's been loose enough to grow with those things. And it's also been interesting to me in the last few years particularly that we've had a lot of student driven shows, so a lot of solo exhibitions, either by studio artists or by curators. So probably half of our schedule now is made up by stArt Yourself type exhibitions, whereas when we started it was almost entirely class exhibitions. So I think that's a good sign of growth, that the students understand it's there as a resource and are taking advantage of it.
Yeah, great.
I just have I have one thought about the challenge piece. So many of you have probably noticed, if you spent enough time around stArt, that we really like to play around with the word stArt and put it on the front of things, like we have stArt yourself, stArtist selections, your stArtist if you show there. So anyway, I think that the greatest existential risk is that we run out of possible pun opportunities with the word stArt. I'm actually kind of serious because I think when that happens, it may be sort of curtains potentially for the gallery. So, but no, it's always been a fun part of that, and I think there'll be many opportunities in the future.
Wordplay.
Yeah, I really wanted stArt biking to take off, to get a stArt bike, to travel back and forth to campus, but for legal reasons it couldn't happen. What was the question?
But wait, but I wanted to start Fiat for the roller trail, and Paul said no.
You wanted to all start?
No, a Fiat in the stArt green, just for the trail.
Or at least a golf cart or something.
Yeah, that was
Transport artwork.
Yeah. Yeah, we have our first stArt manager, who's Carlos.
Oh yeah.
No, Marcus didn't have a car his first.
I had a car for like 2 months, and then went without. And then I had a car the second year.
Yeah.
Well, I'm getting my steps in, that's for sure.
Go for it.
At this point, I don't have another question. Why don't you just say what you'd like to say?
Well, we have one thing.
So thank you again, all of you guys, for coming out tonight. And so as Paul alluded to at the beginning, there are a lot of managers who are not here with us tonight in person, but we have a few of their words that I would like to share on behalf of them. And also, I think it's come through pretty clearly how big of a role Paul Bright has played in the stArt Gallery's life and in all of our lives. And it's hard to really sum it up, but we tried to keep everyone pretty short on what they shared, so we have a little message for you.
I said nothing scurrilous.
I don't think any of it is. So I'm going to read through these, and I think they're in chronological order as to when we served at the gallery. Okay, so this is from Caitlin. Paul is kind, patient, long-suffering, one of the rare university art gallery directors whose unsuspecting warmth betrays a deeper love for students and, dare I say, the university itself. Paul and I embarked upon the stArt journey together 10 years ago, and his support for both the program and me personally has not wavered in the years since. He's a dear friend and mentor, and undoubtedly a jewel in Wake Forest's crown. Caitlin, your language is beautiful. Paul is a jewel. I'm going to use that from now on. You're a jewel, Paul.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, this one's for me. I think I have more names for Paul and vice versa than I do for anyone else I know. And Jewel is going to be added to that. I won't share them all here to avoid incrimination and or embarrassment of the both of us, but I will share a few. The point is, I have known Paul by many names and similarly through many seasons of my life. There was the Mr. Bright, to whom I reported as a young, uncertain 18-year-old. Probably a number of us had that experience of calling him Mr. Bright.
I didn't know who they were talking to.
And there's the Paolo, who taught me how to make a mean risotto, and who introduced me to his Italian friends one summer. And not to mention the Luminoso, hopefully some of you have heard that, who has been present all along, sharing illuminating wisdom, though he might choose to differ on that word, that has helped me navigate the various twists and turns of my life. Paul and Leanne, and all the critters along the way, have been such a huge part of who I have become, now 12 years to the date since I first wandered into the Haynes Gallery. And for this, I owe you guys so much. So thank you guys for teaching me, And thank you also for all the almonds and cashews along the way.
Now, Marcus, we talked about indentureship, and you haven't completed yours.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that did not come up. I'm still working on my my indentureship, I think.
7 years is the term.
7 years. I am inching, like every time I come down here, it adds an extra few days, so I'll get there at some point. And also, if any of you guys want to read your own, you're welcome to, okay? So this is from Adelaide, who is not with us tonight and is actually the furthest, I think, of all of us. She's in Scotland. My first memory of Paul was when I enrolled in his summer school collage class. I was so thrilled someone was offering collage. Paul taught me so much about color, spelled with a U, shape, and the dynamic you can create from very few materials. But most importantly, Paul was brilliant at making me look critically at my work, but at the same time encouraging me to follow my instincts as a maker and artist. Do you want to read it? Okay.
So what has been absolutely clear and consistent with Paul has been his generosity. Personally and professionally, there are no borders to his willingness to understand what I have needed, sometimes before I knew myself. He is not only generous with his time, but also his experience and his resources. He and Leanne bought me a good chef's knife my start year because I only had one dull paring knife. And they have given me clothes, art, furniture, and wine and chocolate for the not-so-great days. I can't count the number of wonderful meals he has made me. He inspired my husband Ted to fall in love with cooking, which has been a total joy for Ted and for me. I have learned immensely from Paul, but I think I am most thankful that he has set a clear example of what it means to be generous.
I'll read Becca's. So there's a note. Just before her first day at stArt, Becca was in a bike accident that broke both of her arms and gave her a concussion. It was a terrible time.
Yeah.
That was not in the note. That was me noting the terrible time. So Becca says, a memory with Paul. Well, God, this is so Becca. Sorry. Well, for a funny-ish sort of one was the time he told me I need to put it in a bubble after I broke my arms. He was so I think she meant we needed to put her in a bubble. I see. Again, very Becca. He was so supportive as a boss and really made sure I was still able to work at stArt and have the support I needed, which I really appreciated. He also pushed me to grow and be more detail-oriented and pay closer attention to my work, which has helped me a ton in all my jobs after stArt. And so my comment's actually kind of repetitive of something that I said before, but Paul Bright is solely responsible for my ability to socialize in a crowd of strangers.
Which is not something people say about me a lot.
The most difficult part of managing stArt for me was hosting opening receptions, and he made it his mission to teach me how to glide through social events with ease. It sounds silly, but his effort inspired a great self-confidence, which opened many doors for me later on. Do you want to read Kylie's? Yeah.
This is from Kylie Kinder. My favorite memory of Paul, there are so many, all in linen outfits, would be that he rewrote California Dreaming as an ode to my time at the gallery during our Fellows Farewell Dinner. His dedication to all the gallery managers and helping them succeed is evident in all he does with stArt. And he was an amazing first boss. And Kylie adds that she so wishes she could be here and hopes that everybody is doing well.
So Paul, I expect that you're going to reprise California Dreaming for us at some point
See, I
tonight.
never sung it, I rewrote it.
So this is from Jay. It says, my most important takeaways from working with Paul Bright are to make bold choices and stay committed until the job is done, and I can feel proud of it. My favorite memory from working with him embodies these lessons. He once stayed at stArt until 1 a.m., maybe later, with me and 6 students to help construct a gigantic papier-mâché and chain link fence installation. It was one of those quintessential Paul moments where he demonstrated leadership through hands-on collaboration. And I'm glad to know that I think that beats the corner of the room time. I think I got out of there like
That was like
11,
amateur
30.
hour stuff.
holding way too many things. Okay, let's see. So, I can also mostly speak to my experience before I graduated working with Paul on the honors project, because again, just started the job. But kind of ties into that as well. So, when I was working on my honors project, Paul helped me to frame my ideas into a cohesive body of work for a successful exhibition. I learned so much, and continue to learn, about what goes into running a gallery from the perspectives of an artist, curator, and manager. And in working with him, you can tell that he's listening, processing, and understanding where you're coming from, sometimes even before you figure out how to explain it. And yet, you can tell he cares and wants you to succeed. So thank you.
So thank you so much for being our first boss.
Thank you, Paul.
And thanks everybody for coming.
Yeah. Also,
Thank you.
before we disperse, we have a few minutes. If you, the audience assembled here, have any questions about stArt as it's functioned in the past, as it does now, as it might in the future, any ideas for it? Yeah.
I'm curious, when you do student shows, do you ever have students who are approach the gallery who have no ties to the art department?
Yeah, we do sometimes. Or peripheral ties. Their involvement with the department can vary from intense to almost none at all. But generally speaking, they're art students, majors, minors. But it varies.
So there have been exhibits of non-art students? That's what I'm just curious.
There have been exhibits of students who make art but aren't in art courses necessarily, because other courses will use making. Yeah, so as long as there's that connection, then we sometimes have exhibitions that cross those disciplines. Leanne, there was one called Deep Dive last year that Leanne was part of, but there were other disciplines involved, but they all had made something visual as part of their projects.
So generally the work originates in a classroom setting?
It can. There are some projects that are increasingly like site-specific. The one that Jay's words alluded to was actual installation that the student artist made in the space. Other student artists will look at the space and create a body of work for it. Some just have a body of work they would like to show it in. So it varies a lot. Anyone else? I know that some of you here are familiar with it. Some aren't.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Someone alluded to the concerns about the wall of the gallery space.
Yeah, so we started out, I think the thinking was, as I recall, that the space was going to be flipping exhibitions very quickly. We wouldn't have time to patch and paint after each show. We didn't know what the training would be of a stArt manager or the time to train them in traditional hanging skills and that sort of thing. So for a while we used a hanging system with rods and so forth. And in recent years we got rid of that with the longer show cycles, and they're all trained now to hang pictures as you would hang them in a museum, basically. So that's one of the sort of technical transformations that we've gone through.
And it's been in the same spot for actually.
So yeah, in the village it has, and it's the stArt downtown is entering its third year. Yeah. Anyone else?
I've got a question.
Sure.
So when it first started, there was this intention, I think, that it would be a place for students to sew for art. It feels like it's gone away. Has it gone away, or how has that transformed?
Yeah, selling has always been maybe a more hypothetical part. We've never sold a lot of work through stArt. We have sold it occasionally, and it's still part of the process when students bring work to the gallery to consign it. So that the opportunity is still there. I will also say that at different points we emphasize different parts of the process and the engagement, and we probably haven't pushed the sales aspect as much, pushing more of the student engagement or the faculty engagement part. But it's still there, and maybe it's something we need to revisit. Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that. I just wonder kind of what happened there.
Yeah,
Is it because nothing really sold that much anyway, that it really wasn't?
well, we always thought that having it for sale was part of the whole gallery experience, that each of them would go through, even if they didn't actually sell the work, they would understand, for example, that 50% of the asking price would go back to the gallery, which always is a shock to students. So they would go through the process, and that was more important than actually selling the work in many cases. And also, when we generated stArt, it was a conversation that occurred with the chair at the time and with the provost at the time. And the provost's kind of focus was on the business aspect. In order to sell the project to the administration, we had to, I think, have that piece. And probably it was more emphasized in those early years because of that too. But it's still part of the sort of curriculum there, but it's not been as emphasized lately, I don't think. Yes.
I'd just be curious to know from managers, what is your favorite visual aspect of stArt? Like place in the room or in the
That's a great question. It's such a beautiful space. I think that what a lot of people mention is the light in there is really beautiful, and it feels like a really calm and peaceful place. So I think that projects have done very well there, and people enjoy being there and working there. So I think just the general light and the atmosphere is my favorite part.
I really love the little triple arch sort of niche, because inevitably in every show, I would have to figure out what goes in the niche, and we would never be able to see it. And it became like my greatest enemy in installing, but also a very nice place to hide, because it's the only place people can't see you from the street and start. But I came to terms with it, and I love it now.
The ceiling.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the niche was an interesting. I always like that one too. I think there's a photo from when I was a manager, and I think Ken Bennett, I don't know if it was his suggestion, but there's a photo of me just sort of with my arms like up on like between two of the arches, and I hate that photo. It's not at all how I normally would stand, so it must have been posed. I don't know. Anyway, so I sort of have a love-hate relationship with that space, but yeah, I mean, for me, it's like I guess I'm veering away a little bit, but I loved the setting of it in Ronaldo Village, both personally in the sense that I love being able to just like at the end of the day run out and run on the trails and kind of be in nature. But also just because of the people that would come in. I think if it were on campus, I alluded to before all the different types of people that would come in, I think you would lose out on that a little bit. So it's kind of away from the physical space, but I guess more on the setting of it.
I'll answer real quick. I noticed it's almost 6:30, so I'm trying to keep things on time. But real quick, Caitlin, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Can you talk about, real quick, just briefly, your favorite physical space in stArt, like the arches, the desk, that kind of thing?
Oh man, yeah, there's something really great about that little area in the back where the arches are. Somehow it feels very intimate and magical and kind of sacred. I will also say I love equally the kitchen. There's always like happiness and food and champagne and whatever. There's always a nice little spot. So yes, the arches in the kitchen are my favorite.
And then real briefly, if I'm trying to think of a place, I would say at the desk, and that seems like an obvious kind of answer, but it's because the gallery is so cold, but you're by the window, so it's kind of warm right now. So yeah, that makes sense, right? And so, but also because it's a desk, but it doesn't feel like an office, and I think that's why I like it a lot, because my office is the gallery space, and it's such, like we mentioned before, with all the natural lighting and all of this, is a very comfortable space. It's a kitchen, bathroom, all the good stuff you need. So, yeah, that would be it.
Well, I think we're out of time. Just say goodbye to Caitlin. We're going to sign off.
Bye, you guys. Thank you for everything. Congratulations, everyone.
Thank you, and to you too. Thanks.
All right.
See you.
Bye.
Bye. And thank everyone else for coming.